Hello everyone, welcome to this UIUX Design Bootcamp. This bootcamp is going to be a 7-part UIUX Design Bootcamp where we pick a particular design prompt and we go ahead to create a design solution. We're going to look at every single aspect of UIUX design. Almost every terminology in UIUX design that you've heard of, we are going to be covering throughout this course and throughout this bootcamp. If you do not know already, my name is Femi John. I am going to be your instructor throughout this particular bootcamp. So to kick off, we are going to look at what the agenda for today is. As you can see here on the screen, for today we are going to be dealing with introduction to UI/UX design, and subsequently we are going to look at other topics such as wireframing and user flows, visual design principles, and the basics of designing in Figma. We are also going to look at designing layouts and grid. We are going to look at all the terminologies involved in designing a really good layout, such as your sizing properties, you have your margin, you have your padding, and all of that. We are also going to look at high fidelity prototype and micro interactions. So we are going to take our wireframes and we are going to turn it into a production ready design, right? So we are also going to introduce micro interactions. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to test what we did because it's really important to test your design. And then we're going to bring all of these activities together and see how we can build a portfolio project and then how we can organize our portfolio and start searching for job opportunities. So let's get started with the activity for today, which is introduction to UI/UX design. There are a few things that you're going to know at the end of this particular video. One is the question, what exactly is UI/UX design? We are going to look at the differences between UI and UX design. We are going to look at its importance and how it affects businesses. We are going to take a deep dive into the roles and responsibilities of UI/UX designers. Then we are going to see how they use frameworks to complete a particular project. So if you have a particular project or a design task you need to work on or a design problem, it is really important you have a framework in mind that guides you through the process. We are going to look at that. We are then going to dive into the early stages of whatever framework you decide to choose, which is mostly the user research. And for this particular prompt, we are going to be using the user interview and the survey method in order to tackle our design and user research challenges. We're also going to look at user personas. We are going to look at user stories, user journey maps, the differences. Then we're going to look at the problem and the goal statements. Enough of what we are going to do. Let's get started with what we have for today. So what exactly is UI/UX design? These two terms can be used interchangeably, but they are actually different, right? UI means user interface design and UX means user experience design. So UI/UX design blends creating visually appealing and functional user interfaces with optimizing the overall user experience to ensure intuitive, engaging, and satisfying interaction. So having read all of these grammatical jargons, if I go to the next slide, you can see an illustration of what UI and UX is. So as a beginner, you can easily say the user interface is just the interpretation of the user experience, right? So if you have your user experience planned out in a particular way, the user interface is what connects you to that user experience. So as you can see here in the diagram here, you have this particular iceberg and the foundation or the main part of this particular iceberg that is seen to be unseen but holds the positioning of this is like the user experience part, which is mostly the jobs that are done behind the hood. Yes, user experience at the end of the day, it's like a feeling, it's like an experience, it's like how you feel when you use a particular product. But that particular interaction with the product is more of the user interface. So here under the user experience, you can see usability testing, you can see the psychology behind the design, you can see the content strategy, prototyping, information architecture, because exactly how you've positioned your information on your website can determine how the users navigate. And if they find it difficult to navigate, that results to a poor user experience. So you can see what the user experience actually means. So you can see design research, which is understanding your users and understanding exactly how you can design for that particular target market or target audience. So all of these things are the psychology behind the design. But then the user interface is what allows the user interact with that particular product. So every product we use have a user interface. Your laptop has a user interface. Your mobile phone has a user interface. So next is, why exactly is UI UX design important? You can see that it improves user satisfaction. So if you have your interface designed properly and it gives the user the best experience possible, let's say the whole aim of them visiting your website is actually to purchase a particular product, we are easily able to navigate to where the product is, we are easily able to make purchase, and they get the successful delivery of their product. This will definitely improve user satisfaction. So if you have designed the interface in such a way that allows them perform all of these operations with ease, then you've definitely improved the user satisfaction. You can also boost conversion rates. So there are a few psychological decisions that you can make to improve your conversion rates. An example will be optimizing your content in such a way that can easily navigate the user to the section where you want them to purchase that particular goods or services. Another example will be to use very nice illustrations or images to captivate the user to help them build a particular feeling towards that product. You also want to make sure things like your purchase buttons are really obvious so that the user doesn't miss it. You also want to make sure you have a very good consideration for your error scenarios so that once a user gets into an error while trying to achieve a goal, they easily understand what the error is about and they can fix it themselves. Having all of these things fixed will easily boost your conversion rate, and you won't be having people dropping off while trying to make a purchase or dropping off while trying to meet the end goal of your product or your website. It also enhances brand loyalty. You can see that once you've been able to get satisfaction from a particular product, you tend to visit that product more often because you trust that they can offer you that particular service with ease. So that's where brand loyalty comes from. So these are the importance of UI UX design. The next thing we're going to look at is what exactly are the roles of UI UX designers. How do they exactly carry out their day-to-day activities, right? So let's go. For UI designers, you can see there are some activities that they perform on a day-to-day. We have wireframes, we have visual design, prototyping, design systems, UI testing, and also collaborating with other stakeholders. So we are going to look at the activities of UX designers. We have user research, personal development, user journey mapping, information architecture, usability testing, and user flows. So as you can see, these are some of the day-to-day activities that is performed by a UI designer and by a UX designer. So if you are a UI UX designer, that is supposed to assume that you have all of these abilities or all of these skill sets and you can perform all of these operations. Because all of these things are really important in understanding exactly how to create the best product for your users. So we are going to go next to frameworks. So frameworks in UI UX design is a structured approach or methodology that provides guidelines and steps to solve design problems effectively. So helping designers deliver a user-centric product, it organizes the design process into stages, ensuring consistency, usability, and alignment with the user need and business goals. So while it is important that we are designing for the users, from here you can also tell that it is important that we take into consideration the business goals, right? The people who are trying to offer the service and the people who are receiving the service, basically. So as you can see here, framework basically guides us through our design process. So if you have a prompt or you have a design problem to solve or the solution to a design problem, basically, the first thing you need to know is what framework am I going to use to complete this UI UX design project. Now, after you've been able to use frameworks for your first, second, third project, so what this helps you do is that it gives you a really broad understanding on how to tackle design challenges. Now, with time, you don't have to strictly follow all of these frameworks or processes. You can have your own process, but what is most important is you having a guide to which you tackle that particular design problem and you can explain it in such a way that can be easily understood by non-technical people. So that's basically the whole concept behind framework. And for this particular design class, we are going to be using the design thinking process. And this is because the design thinking process is broken down into different phases, which makes it really easy for beginners to understand. So a lot of people take the design thinking process and get started with it. So now that we know what frameworks are and what they are used for, so here we have the design thinking process explained. It's a user-centric approach that involves empathizing with users, defining problems, ideating solutions, prototyping, and testing to create innovative designs. So here you see that we have 5 different stages of the design thinking process. There are the 3-stage design thinking process, but we are going to be using the 5-stage in this particular bootcamp. And this includes empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. You can actually go back and forth between the different stages in this process. So, like I mentioned, we've understood exactly the framework we are going to be using and the different stages involved. Now, what are the activities that are going to be carried out in these different stages? Here you can see that we've broken down the activities, which is the day-to-day activities of a UI designer and a UX designer, into the different stages of the design thinking process. And as you can notice, you can see that a lot of the earlier activities is carried out by the UX designer, because at this point, we've actually not started designing, right? And we've established that the visual part of things is the UI design. So the UX designer basically carries out the early activities in order to understand what the problem is, what type of user are we solving this problem for, and any other insights that could inform us in what the solution to this problem could be. So in the empathize phase, we have the user research, the empathy map, we identify pain points, we draw out our user personas, and the user journey map. Now, while it is really important that you know how to do all of these things, not all projects will give you the opportunity to create all of these things, because there are usually some constraints like time constraints and of course the deliverables, right? So some deliverables might not involve this, and they will give you a really short period of time to deliver a user interface to solve a particular problem. You won't really have the time to go through all of these things one after the other. But there are some really key insights that you need. And if you have the ability to create some of this, you can on your own create a quick draft to help you and guide you through the design process. So now that we know the activities that is to be performed and we've established the framework that we are going to be using for this project, now we need to bring in our prompt, which, like I mentioned, is going to serve as the goal statement. And for this particular bootcamp, we are going to design a website for an immigration consulting firm. So an immigration consulting firm is basically a group of individuals or a particular individual that offer consulting services for people who are looking to migrate or immigrate through probably the school route or probably the job route. And they also might be helping with, let's say, visa applications and all of those things. Maybe you're also going for a tourist visa, or you're going for, or you're immigrating or migrating for any reason. An immigration consulting firm will look at your specific situation, look at what you want, and find the best possible solution for you. So this is our goal statement in form of a prompt. So, but in general, this prompt states that we should create a professional, user-friendly website for an immigration consulting firm that effectively communicates and showcases its services. Right? The website should cater for potential clients seeking assistance with CV, resume reviews, job applications, school applications, and things like that. So we are going to extract all of these services as the potential solution to the user's problems. And we're going to see how we identify those problem statements and map this potential solution to those problems to create a structured goal statement. But usually, like you can see here, we are starting from the top to bottom. So we are starting with the solution. We already have the solution in mind. This is more like a solution to what we want to build. There is actually no structured way of how this is supposed to be. You can start with either the problem or the solution, but what's most important is, regardless of if you're giving the solution to a problem or the problem itself, you still want to carry out some form of research, right? It gives you an insight on exactly who you're solving this problem for, and it's going to give you some knowledge that probably was not captured while you're being presented with this solution or with this prompt. So how do you create a user experience research while you've already have the answers, or while it seems like you already have the solution to this? So we are still going to go ahead to create this user experience research, and forget the fact that we have this. This has given us a guide on what we want to research for, but we'll still go ahead to create the research while ignoring the fact that we already have the goal statement, right? And this is really not the best approach to use, because there is potential to be biased, because you already have a solution in mind, and somehow your mind just ends up mapping all of the problems that you're finding to this particular solution, even though there is going to be a potential for you to be able to solve these problems in a different way. But because we've already have this as the solution, there is a potential that regardless of what our research comes out with, we are going to kind of map it down to this. But in light of this particular activity, we are going to go with this. So as you can see here, I already mapped out. As soon as I got this prompt and this particular solution, I tried to find out what the challenge is from the consulting firm who wants to create this solution. And by the way, this is actually a real project, and after this particular bootcamp, it's going to go down to the developers and they are going to build it. So if you're watching this video, you're being engaged in an actual live project. So what exactly were the challenges that this particular consulting firm was having? So one is the fact that they don't have enough brand trust, which is basically people don't know enough about them, and they get asked a lot of questions before someone can want to use their service. And this can probably be caused by the fact that they don't have a central platform like a website where somebody can just go ahead and read about them. So they also have the challenge of getting a lot of repetitive activities, like having to answer the same questions to new clients. So they have 20 new clients, and those new clients are asking the same questions and they have to answer the same questions. So this can easily be solved by like the FAQ section on your website, right? You have frequently asked questions, and someone can just go there and get the answer to their questions without having to reach out to you all the time. So they also want to easily receive payments in different currencies, right? Having a business account, it can be difficult receiving payments from different currencies, but with the integration of like a payment gateway on some of their services, users can pay with credit card and they can receive payments in different currencies and from different countries. So they also want to easily collect and manage client data and processes. So a lot of people are sending them their resume, their CV, and their school documents, their job application documents. They need a central system where they can organize all of these things, and also a system that can tell them what stage they are with each client. Okay, we've started. We have a consultation section coming up in the next 2 days. So basically a central system that can manage their processes. While we might not be able to solve all of these challenges, we are going to pick some of the challenges that we can solve, putting into consideration the time constraints we have for this bootcamp, so that we can go ahead and start solving them. So like I mentioned, we have all of these challenges and we have this prompt, which is like a cheat code to our user research. But let's ignore and act as if none of this exists, and we want to create our user research from scratch, just so that we validate exactly this solution. So we have the solution, but now we are trying to validate that this is the right solution for the problem, which means we have to step back and get the exact problem and the challenge for the consulting firm and for the users who want to use their services. So we need to figure out their challenges. We have some here. For the consulting firm, we have to also get the challenges for the users and then map out their pain points and then create a goal statement for all of them and see how it relates to this particular prompt that we have here. So here you can see that the first thing we need to do is research. Like I mentioned, we need to research. And for research is basically to validate a proposed solution or to offer a solution to a problem or a set of problems. And in our case, we are validating a proposed solution, which is the solution that we just talked about, creating a website for an immigration firm. But what exactly do you need to know about research? The major thing you need to know is the fact that it is classified into 2 stages, right? Who does the research and what type of data is collected in this research. So the first thing about who does the research is the fact that it is divided into the primary research and the secondary research. The primary research are research that are done by yourself and that you did directly. So an example will be a user interview. If you write down your questions and you conduct a user interview, that is a primary research because it was done by you. A secondary research is going to be data or information that was collected from a third party. So an example would be looking up Google for a particular statistics. Let's say how many people use an immigration consulting firm, for instance. That is going to be a secondary research because somebody has already made that research and put the information online. So the next thing you need to know about what type of data is being collected is the quantitative and the qualitative research method. The quantitative is basically about the quantity of data received, which is the volume of data received. So like I mentioned earlier, if you say how many people have used consultation firms or consultation services, now you're looking at a data that's going to be collected in volume. So you can have something like 100 people out of 1,000 people. So that is volume. You are trying to find out how many people are involved in a particular thing so that you can know the ratio of interest. But for qualitative, it's basically about what exactly is the challenge that a person is facing. So it is more about the quality of the context, right? So you want to tap into the person's feelings. You want to hear what they are saying. You want to even pay attention to things that they don't exactly say, right? So you want to gather as much information as possible. You want to know the exact process. You want to know the challenges that they face. You want to know what their proposed solution is. So basically, it answers the question what, while for the quantitative answers questions like how many. So those are what you need to know about who does the research and what type of data is collected. For the research method, we have different research methods: interview, survey, usability study, focus groups, A/B testing, and heuristic evaluation. So some of these are primary, some of these are secondary, some of these are qualitative, and some are quantitative. Like an interview will fall under the primary and qualitative research because it is done by you and it answers a lot of questions around what exactly is the challenge, how are you feeling. So for survey is definitely a primary quantitative research. It is primarily carried out by you. Someone else can take the survey on your behalf, and of course that's going to make it a secondary research. But if it is carried out by you, it's going to be a primary quantitative research because what you want to know is how many people feel a certain way, how many people do a particular thing. So you're going to send this survey out to a number of people. And for our research, we're going to be making use of the first two that you see here, which is the interview and the survey. So for the interview, we are going to interview the consulting firm itself, like people who carry out this service. And you're going to be asking a few questions. I already consulted this interview, and I am going to go ahead in our next class to present the data that I found. I also recorded the entire interview process with this particular consulting firm, and I'm going to transcribe that and I'm going to paste them on a link and I'm going to attach it in this particular video. But basically the kind of questions you want to ask in your interview is going to be: describe your work and how you handle customers who want your service. So like we've mentioned, we've described their work. They're a consultation firm. They take consultation sections. They handle CV and resume reviews, job applications, and school applications. How do they handle their customers? Of course, currently they do not have a website. They perform or they operate solely on WhatsApp and Instagram, right? And this can create some difficulty in which we are going to be talking about. So how do you manage all customer requests? Basically, like I mentioned, they use Instagram and WhatsApp, and once a customer request comes in on Instagram, for instance, they take their orders, they collect all the documents needed, and they start processing. So that is not the most efficient way to handle situations like this, and that is exactly why a UI/UX designer is needed to create a better experience for the user. So another question could be, what challenges do you face with customers and how does it make you feel? So you want to know what challenges they face and exactly how it makes them feel so that you can know how you can go ahead to fix those problems. So is there a way you think this challenge can be solved? yes, which is why they gave us that particular prompt as the goal statement, that they think creating a website that can help them organize all the information being collected, that can help them put all their information out there, that can have like an FAQ section, and all of those things will really help them to create a better experience for their users. Next to the interview questions for the consultants, we also want to have a survey. I've created a survey for this particular bootcamp and this particular lecture, and this survey is geared towards the users themselves, right? So we asked some questions in the survey. We do have a WhatsApp group. If you're interested, the link is going to be in the description. You can go ahead to join in. I sent this particular survey questions to that focus group. So we are using two research methods here, which is like the focus group and the survey. So if you really want to answer this, if you also want to participate and answer this survey, I'm going to put the link to the Google form there in the description. But these are similar questions that were asked. We had a total of 10 questions in the survey, and we are going to also show the results. So we are going to show the results of the interview with the consulting firm and the results of the survey. So once we have this, so as you can see, these are the questions that were asked in the survey. So if you haven't, do you think it's important to use an immigration consulting firm? So for people who haven't used before, you want to have their opinion on if it's something they think is important and if it's something they would like to use. So if it's something they would like to use, what particular service do you think will catch their interest? So out of 100 people that you potentially sent out a survey to, if you have 60% or 70% of those people stating that they will most likely want to use, let's say, the CV and resume review service. So you then understand that a large percentage of this target audience are interested mostly in a particular service. So it can help you probably push that service up front. So if we have, for instance, a lot of people showing interest in the CV and resume review service, on the website, what we can do is we can prioritize that service so that as soon as someone lands on the website, above default, they can easily see that they can review their resume and CV. That particularly brings the most used service to the top, and it increases conversion for that service, since you know that there is a high chance that whoever is visiting that website needs this service. So these are some intuitive decisions that you can make based on the research, and this is why our research is really important. So for people, if you have used an immigration service before, what made you choose them? So for people who have used an immigration service, we want to pick their brains on what exactly triggered the decision to use that particular service provider, right? So we asked a lot of questions in that survey, and I'm going to put the link in the description. So this is just like a snippet of the kind of questions we are going to be asking. So you want to ask questions that will be relevant to your design process. So once you have all of these answers, you have all the answers from all of your users from your survey, you also have the answers from your interview with the consultation firm. You now want to create a user empathy map, right? Where you want to map out everything that your users say, they think, they do, and they feel, to give you an insight. So if you create this map, so if you've done this for a particular group of users, so you want to take what most of the users are saying, what most of the users think, what most of the users do. So you want to create like an intersection. Most people feel the same way and take note of that. So if you have 5 people saying something, you want to definitely put that there. If you have 5 people doing the exact same thing, you want to put that here and all that. So it just gives you a map of what exactly the users are doing, saying, what they think, and how they feel. So you also want to now generate a pain point. So you also want to now extract the pain point. As you can see here from the consultation, we already extracted the pain point, which is the challenge that we had there in the prompt section. So these are basically pain points. These are the things that the consultation firm finds frustrating, right? We've already established this. And for the users, we are going to talk about that in the next video because I don't have the data yet. The survey is currently still going on, right? But basically what you need to know about pain points is pain points can be divided into 4 sections. We have the financial pain points, the product pain points, the process pain points, and the support. So financial pain points are pain points or frustrations that occur based on financial situation. Let's say a user is not able to afford your subscription service. That is a typical example of a financial pain point, right? So a product pain point is a product pain point is typically if a user comes to your website or to your product expecting to be able to do a particular thing. So for instance, in our case, we have an immigration consulting firm, right? Now, whenever a user visits this particular website, they are expecting that they can book a consultation with an immigration expert. If they come to your website and they are unable to achieve this for some reason, that is a product pain point. Your product is probably misleading, or it doesn't guide the user properly to the point where they can achieve exactly what they want on your website or on your product. So a process pain point will actually be a situation where, like I mentioned earlier, if you're trying to buy a product from an e-commerce website and you're hitting the add to cart button or the checkout button and then it's not working, you're not getting any error and you're just stuck. That is a typical example of a process pain point. Now, you've come to the website, you've seen exactly what you want and you're trying to get it, but for some reason, the process is not allowing you get to your end goal, right? So that is a process pain point. And then a support pain point, of course, is when somebody hits a blocker and they have no way to reach out to you and no way to get support from the owners or the stakeholders of the product, which is where the support pain point comes in. So these are the few things you need to know about pain points. We are also going to look at the user's point of view, the pain points, and you can on your own map them to the different categories of pain points. But then once you have all of these pain points, you want to create a user persona. A lot of us are really familiar with user personas, which are basically fictional users whose goals and characteristics represent the needs of a larger group of people. So you've taken this large chunk of data from our survey, right? You now want to look at the common characteristics in some of this data. So if you are creating a user persona, for instance, and during our survey, we asked, how old are you? And we gave like an age range. So people who checked the fact that they've used a consultation service before, if you check those categories of people, you can also check what is the average age range for the people in that category. You can find out that the average age range in that category is 25. So this is a typical example of information that can go in your user persona. So if you're creating a user persona that represents somebody who have used an immigration service or an immigration consulting service before, you want to put the fact that the age is going to be 25 because that's the average age range. You might want to mention the fact that the average age range is 25. So we are going to look at an example of a user persona like you can see here. So here you see this particular persona. You are also going to make mention of the goals and the frustration of these particular people, and then you want to have a behavior or a biography. So if you're going to have a biography, you want to have a biography that kind of have a relationship with the problem you're trying to solve or the solution to the problem you're trying to solve, so that you can create some kind of link. It's good to have a random biography, but if you can have your biography relate to the problem you're trying to solve, then it's going to give you more insights and it's going to make your user persona a lot useful. So this is a typical example of a user persona, and this was gotten from some of the response also from our survey, right? So next, you want to have your user stories. You want to have a non-fictional one-sentence story told from a personal point of view to inspire and inform the design decision. So let's take a look at what our user persona is and how we can draft a user story out of it. So looking at our user persona, you can see this person have some goals and some pain points. Now let's pull up a template that is going to help us to craft a really nice user story. Like I mentioned, a lot of the material from this course was gotten from the Google UX Design Specialization Certification, right? So I'm going to go ahead to pull off all the templates that we've gotten from this Empathize Phase. I'm just going to show you guys. So here in my drive, you can see all of the templates that we are going to be using for this first stage of this bootcamp. So if you've taken the bootcamp, if you've taken the Google UX Design Specialization Certification course, you're in luck. because this is just going to be like a reinforcement of what you already know. So we are looking here for the user story, right? You can come back here and look at the templates for every other section. Let's say user personas, empathy map. But let's open up the user story to see what the templates look like. This is how you craft your user story, right? So next to the user story, you can have your user journey map. Let's look at the templates for our user journey map from our Google Drive here. So I'm going to open up this user journey map from the Google templates we received. So here you can see that this is like an example. Find the subway routes that will take him to the Empire State. So this, for the goal of our user journey map, right, it's going to be, let's create a goal statement. It's going to be find the best job opportunity to immigrate to Canada. Now, the good thing about a user journey map is the fact that you can do it for the challenge, and also you can also create a user journey map for the proposed solution. So before a person interacts or engages themselves with an immigration consultation firm, a typical example of how they would want to solve their problem or a problem like this will be the fact that, okay, they go online to search for job opportunities in Canada, maybe through LinkedIn or through any of these job platforms. They apply to a ton of this. And before the application, they probably have to customize their CV and cover letter to each job application. Then they apply to a ton of these jobs, and then they get rejected. You can see all of this task list is what it's going to be. So for the first task, it could be fix your resume or cover letter based on your own understanding. For the action 2, it's going to be search for the job opportunities that you want. Action 3 is going to be take those cover letters and resume that you fixed to apply for that job opportunity that you find in action 2. Action 3 will be the fact that you get your interview dates or you get a rejection letter. And in this section where you see filling, so here when you're filling, so in this section where you have fillings adjective, right, it's just going to be an example. You can see here, let's take an example of what they have here. You can see you have confused, feeling intimidated, lost, hopeful, a lot of feeling adjectives that could come in this section. So for our situation, when somebody is reviewing their CV or resume, if you are fixing up your CV or your resume, you're going to have that really hopeful feeling that, okay, I'm doing something good, I'm doing something important for my career, and this should in turn get me a really good job, right? But because this person is targeting to immigrate to Canada, they are hoping that they get a really good job in Canada. So the feeling adjective here can be hopeful while they are creating their resume and CV, right? So for the action 2, where they are looking for job opportunity, they can still be hopeful, and they can also be lost in some place because they don't know exactly what platform to use and all of that. So at the end of this, maybe they get to action 5 where they actually got a rejection email. They are going to feel, let's look for an adjective that works: hopeful, confused, intimidated, or we can just say they feel sad, right? So once they get their rejection letter, they can feel sad. So these are the adjectives that you can map out. So imagine if somebody has to do this entire process, review CV, apply for jobs, get rejected, all over. They've done this more than 1,000 times, and they keep ending up at this sad feeling. It is actually not the best. So for an immigration consulting firm, what you want to do is to fix this, right? Ways you can fix this is to reduce how many times the person end up in this sad feeling, right? So if it's done by themselves, they have to do this like 1,000 times. For an immigration consulting firm with a lot of experience, you can provide guidance on exactly the type of jobs to look out for. So this is basically it about user journey maps, right? It just maps out the journey of the user so that you can have a table or a map that explains exactly what people do, how they feel at a particular point in time, and what the outcome will be like. So that's what the user journey maps is. So once you've been able to create the user journey map, you can then go ahead to start writing your problem statement. You can see that a problem statement is a clear description of the user's need that should be addressed, right? Let's go back to one of our templates and see what the problem statement template looks like. So if you open up this, you can see that the user here, let's say Johnson Michael or Michael Johnson, is a software engineer who needs proper consultation and guidance because they don't want to apply to like 1,000 jobs, or they don't want to keep getting rejected on every job application. Or the user is a software engineer who needs a consultation firm because they want to be able to migrate abroad. So this is a problem statement that is addressing the consultation service of the immigration consulting firm. There are other services that you can craft a problem statement for, such as, let's say, this same user, Michael Johnson, is a software engineer who needs his CV and resume reviewed because they want to increase their chances of landing a remote job. So that is exactly how you craft a problem statement. So once you have that, you can now see that our problem statements have helped us map the exact goal that the user is trying to achieve. The value proposition is actually not very important, but it is a very good, nice to have. So the importance of a value proposition is that it makes you unique from other people who are offering the same service. So there are thousands and hundreds of immigration consulting firms out there, but why exactly will this particular one be unique? Why should a person choose your service over the other person's service, right? So that's going to be your value proposition. An example for a value proposition for this particular prompt, which is the immigration consultation firm, is going to be the fact that we can say we are assuring you that you're going to land your first remote job as soon as you use our job application service. And if you don't, we are going to refund your money 100%. That is a very good value proposition because someone knows that as soon as they buy their service, it's either they get the remote job that they want in the dream country of their choice, or they get their money back. So that is a very decent value proposition, which is too good to be true. I don't think any company would want to do that because it's not fully in their control. But that's just to give you an insight on what a value proposition is. So then we can go ahead to start crafting our goal statement. And like I mentioned, our goal statement is very similar to this. All we need to do is to break it down into different objectives. So that's where we are going to be stopping for this particular class. And in the next class, you're going to see that here we've aligned all our features that is addressing every single problem and every single service that the consultation firm wants to offer, and then it's also addressing what the user needs. Unlike the way it is here in our prompt, where it is just all together, right? So we want to extract this one after the other so that we can tackle each problem while designing. So guys, thank you so much for sticking to the end of this. This is the first stage of our 7-day bootcamp. And I understand that this particular lecture might be really long and boring because it has to do with a lot of theoretical knowledge. And we are going to dive right into designing from our next class. Thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave it in the description. Also, please give this video a thumbs up. A lot of efforts have been put to create a summarized and concise version of everything you need to know about user experience design. Please support this channel by leaving a thumbs up and subscribing, and also sharing with people who are looking to get started with user experience design and they want to have an idea of everything that is involved in this. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I can't wait to get to the end of this where we'll be able to create something really beautiful, and it's also going to be live and we can all be proud of ourselves. Thank you so much for watching, like I said once more, and I'm going to see you guys in my subsequent videos. Bye for now.